Kaylee, did you know that Phil Collins donated his entire multi-million-dollar collection of Alamo artifacts to the state of Texas?
I didn't know he had a collection at all, but if he ever wanted to pursue a career change, there is a new school in San Antonio that would pay him to both learn cybersecurity and guarantee job placement. What a segue.
Yeah. I tell you, if all the Phil Collins related segues I've had, so this program is really cool. It's called Nukadu. And, the whole plan for this company is they offer candidates. It's a 4 to 6 month paid training program, followed by a guaranteed job. And they even, I think, guarantee a certain pay level for the job. It's really something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, wow. It's one of those times when I really wish this was a thing when I was coming out of school, an entry level job looker, seeker. But if I remember correctly, it started in Singapore where it had a lot of success under the name Red Alpha. And they worked there with a lot of prestigious partners like Accenture, ST Engineering, and companies like that.
Yeah, so I think the deal is it's something like $4,000 a month while you're in training. And then when you're done with your training, you get matched with a job that guarantees you $66,000 a year. So it's extraordinary. Now, I think in the model that they have in the US, there's a ton of, getting the job, meaning getting the, whatever you want to call it, hired to train with them is a rigorous process. Mm-hmm. But the model's still a good model, right? If we're looking at, 500,000 deficit in cyber jobs at any given point, you would think that creativity like this, if you're a big company that needs this, you want to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
You want to, and particularly if the training that I don't know anything, really about the quality of the training, but if it's great training, it's essentially a sure thing that you're getting,
right,
as a company.
Yeah, I similarly, I don't know anything about the actual training itself, but with the big names who are partnering with them, you have to believe that there's something there. I mean, the whole program is designed to completely transform somebody into an actual career, instead of, I don't know, it seems like in InfoSec and cyber for years, it's been there's a lot of people who are self-taught now that there's a lot of college programs. We're getting those degrees as well. But things like this are what are really needed because you don't really know what you're getting into until you get that hands-on direct experience.
And the companies that are participating, I sort of like that they're putting their money where their mouth is in the sense that, we talk a lot on the program about these unicorn job postings for a person who wants to do entry-level cybersecurity, who, is presumably a 3 years out of college, but has 15 years of experience with all these certifications, and it just doesn't exist.
No.
And so fine, if you want that, train them to do it, figure out a way. And you've got Nukadu sort of trying that. I think the first class is maybe 15 people, but it's a model that if it works, could be great. We've seen this maybe with some of the military training programs for folks who are transitioning to civilian life, trying to acquire these skills. But we've never seen a purely sort of private side driven, private side sourced solution like this that I'm aware of.
I've seen it before with software engineering boot camps. But yeah, again, first time for cyber. And I just love the idea of kind of combining the internship idea with actually getting paid and getting that actual learning, that hands-on experience. It makes so much more sense for transitioning people into these jobs where they clearly are going to have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't want the second day on the job to be the first time you've done something when you're, watching the wall in a cybersecurity incident, right?
Right, exactly.
That's for sure. All right. Well, I'm your host today, Jack Clabby, a cybersecurity attorney at Carlton Fields. And with me, as always, is Kaylee Melton, a cybersecurity mercenary and the Bob Ross of InfoSec. Today, we're going to chat with Dr. Thomas Hyslip. Tom is an assistant professor of instruction in the Department of Criminology here at the University of South Florida. He teaches exclusively in the Master of Science in Cybercrime program. Dr. Hyslip's experience in law enforcement spans decades. It includes time with the U.S. Secret Service and the Department of Defense's Criminal Investigative Service, DCIS. There, he targeted international cybercrime groups. He also worked undercover. He penetrated underground cybercrime organizations throughout the world. This is going to be a good one. Stay tuned, and we'll dive in after a short break.
Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that introduces you to some of the top talent in the world of cybersecurity.
Well, welcome back. Our guest is Dr. Thomas Hyslip. Tom, welcome to No Password Required.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, normally we start with a little bit of information about your current role and about your sort of career path, and we are going to get to that. But I can't help but ask first about some of the stuff that I saw in your bio. So, can you talk a little bit about your the time you stood up and led a DCIS undercover operation? That's
Sure.
just crazy. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of fun, but majority of cybercrime still today is reactive. You find out about an intrusion and then you go investigate it and hope to catch the person. And this was late 2008-ish, and I wanted to be more proactive. And so I got the idea, let's start this undercover. And so the biggest hurdle is, like any undercover, you got to have real good backstopping of your personnel. So you got to go get a whole, undercover persona, fake social security number, bank account, everything. So you can then, and you need all that just so you can get internet that's not tied to the government. Because you can't go open even a cell phone. You can't go open a cell phone now,
Okay.
legitimate cell phone with everything backstopped and linked to a credit card and a bank account. And so that's the longest time frame. But then once that happened, we were up and running and quickly, dove into the underground world of hackers. So.
Wow. Well, just can you tell our audience what DCIS is? I had a chance many, many years ago as a prosecutor to work with them, and they were awesome. But tell us a little bit about what that was.
Yeah. So it's DCIS. It stands for the Defense Criminal Investigative Service. I'm sure everyone's heard of NCIS, from the TV show. So we're DCIS. So they were created in the early 80s to combat fraud against the Department of Defense. After a couple years of a standalone agency, when they created the Inspector General for the Department of Defense, they pulled DCIS in as the criminal investigative arm for the Inspector General. And so probably 67% of their mission is fraud-based, fraud against DoD, healthcare fraud. But then they also have a decent cybercrime arm. They have a whole field office, and it's worldwide. And, we work a lot with the FBI because of the national security implications of DoD. And you just kind of run under the radar and work some good cases and have fun.
Now, how do you, when you're thinking about the complexity of the cybercrime threat, what role does law enforcement play, federal law enforcement play in such complicated things?
Well, the thing about federal is it's so hard for state and locals to do cybercrime investigations because they're so, intrastate or international. Yeah. A lot of it falls to federal. And so there's so much work. They just can't keep up, and they can only really prioritize, the high priority cases. But in cybersecurity in general, they're kind of like the hammer. If you want to, you got to hammer that nail in, right? So you can have civil stuff. You can get people, deplatformed, for misuse. But the federal law enforcement is really the hammer to completely stop it. Obviously, hopefully arrest someone, put them in prison. That definitely stops them from committing cybercrime. Unfortunately, it's not as much deterrent as you would think, just because it takes so long and you just don't hear about it.
Are the DCIS agents, are they enlisted or are they like the FBI, right? They're
FBI, all civilian.
Their own thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, completely civilian agency. Like I was Secret Service, and then I moved over, transferred over to DCIS. A lot of former FBI agents will leave and come over. And so, yeah, it's a small agency, but all civilian leader. They report to the Inspector General reports to the SecDef. So we got a short chain of command, which was nice.
I had the case that I worked on as a prosecutor had DCIS and Homeland Security, which was a similar collaboration to what you're talking about with the FBI. And so, I mean, that's interagency cooperation on the law enforcement side. From your work with the NSA and U.S. Cyber Command, I mean, you also saw a different kind of interagency kind of collaboration. Can you walk us through the importance of that sort of cross-agency collaboration?
Yeah. So, I mean, you got two aspects, right? You have the cybersecurity people, the cyber ops people, as you mentioned, NSA, Cybercrime. You have the law enforcement side, and then you have the general cybersecurity people, like DISA and Joint Task Force, what is it now, DOD, NIC. But anyways, because they're seeing the problem first, and they have to report it somewhere, and so they have to fix the problem, but they also have to report it. And then when they report it to law enforcement, we have to come in and investigate it. You really got to work hand in hand with them because. One, we're not going to know about probably 90% of the stuff unless they tell us. And if you've ever worked for DOD and the reporting systems for cyber there, it's massive. And you can't just go in and scroll through and look for a case. I mean, there's millions of it a day, right? I can't remember the number, but it was, I can't remember how many millions. Hundreds of millions of emails, just for example, they get a day. So how many are spear phishing emails? How many are, ransom emails, whatever the case may be. You can't go in and just search through and look for a case. You need somebody to identify the major problem and refer it to you. And then you need to work together on identifying it. But they need to know who you are too. If they don't know who you are, they're not going to refer it to you. They're not going to call you. And so that was one of the big hurdles. When we stood up our cyber field office, we really had to get in and let everybody know in DOD who we were, what we could do for them. And be their hammer, for lack of a better term, because they can block people and they can stop their access and counter the exploits and vulnerabilities, but we're the only ones that can go and catch them and do something to them.
Tom, with your high profile roles and the access you had, I imagine a lot of what you talk about is secret or confidential or in some way protected. Are there any stories that you can tell us about, experiences you had, in any of your roles? On the U.S. government side that are public.
Yeah, so there's some funny stories, and then there's just normal case stories, right? The one of the funny ones. So I was with the Secret Service, and I got sent. It was during the home run derby of McGuire and Sosa, and so I get sent to.
That's awesome.
I get sent to Wrigley Field because President Clinton is going to go watch the home run derby. Right? They're going to watch these two trying to break the record. And I don't know if you've ever been to Wrigley Field, but I got assigned to the owner's box.
Wow.
Wrigley Field was built in the 1900s, I believe. I'm on the catwalk outside the door. I'm inside. Then when the president gets there, I go outside. The shift goes in with him. But then in the seventh inning, he left and went down to the dugout to meet the players after the game. So they said, go in and hold the owner's box until he leaves, until the mission's over. And is he coming back? No, he's not coming back. So it doesn't have to be secure. Just the secure phone was in there and there was equipment in there.
Oh, wow.
So, long story short, I went in and they had all this free food and the butler was like, go ahead and eat. So I got myself a plate of food. I sat down in the owner's box, watched the end of the game. I used the president's phone to call my wife.
Nice.
And then when I was leaving, what's his name? The guy from the Miller Lite commercials. You must be in the front row. I walk out the door and he's yelling down to me, hey agent. And I look up and it's the old, announcer from the TV commercials. He goes, I got some signed balls for the agents. And he threw down a box.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That was an interesting story for sure. And funny.
That's like the most American. It's like George Washington crossing the Delaware. It's like
totally.
You've got Sosa and McGuire at Wrigley Field with President Clinton eating a hot dog.
Right.
Talking. That's just like more American it could not be. That's great. Yeah. You're holding a bald eagle in one hand. Yeah.
Exactly right. So, that was a fun time.
Now, I mean, one of the things that we've heard frustration about from some folks who touch the cybersecurity kind of criminal side is that it is hard to get prosecutions, that sometimes cases end with other parts of the government doing things around the corner that maybe the agents never hear about. And occasionally it does end with prosecution. Did you face that frustration, and were you guys able to get cases across the line from time to time?
Yeah, we would get some good cases across the line, but depending on the district, the federal district you're in, a lot of them, depending on how busy they are, if it's not a high priority case, they're just like, listen, we don't have time for this. It is what it is. You kind of put it aside and go do something else. But we had some good successes. Again, the high profile cases, they're always taken. It's the lower profile where there's not a ton of money lost or not a lot of victims. Sometimes it's, I'm not faulting the prosecutors. Yeah. They're getting 100 referrals a day. They got to pick and choose what they can do. But yeah, we had some good success with some of the DDoS platforms. We were pretty successful with in like 15 to 20 timeframe. We worked with NCIS on a real good case called Team Digital, which you would mention a cool story. So working with NCIS, my good buddy Tim DeBolt, he's now left and runs intelligence for Intel 471, if you heard of them. But we identified the suspect was an active duty Navy guy, and they knew he was hacking all these universities and police departments and colleges, AT&T, just stuff all over the country. He had a little team of people, but he was the leader. They did a sting and put a fake server on the aircraft carrier, and it went as soon as they installed it. And so Mike flew out in a plane to the aircraft carrier where he was stationed. They put in a fake server, and within 2 hours, he had hacked the server, and they were logging everything. So he was doing it. And so that was an interesting case. Mike got to have some fun on that one, flying out to the aircraft carrier. Fortunately, I didn't get to ride along.
That is awesome. You think that you put like a trophy like that out there, you think it might take a little while, but 2 hours is pretty darn good.
I mean, within installing it, he gets to work. He saw it and immediately hacked it. So.
How often do you convert cyber criminals into cyber assets?
Like an informant or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not often. We used to say we flipped them. We had a couple. And a lot of times it's after you catch them, and so they're trying to work off some potential sentencing. So
right.
That's where you can usually get a little bit of cooperation, but sometimes they're just like, I'm not working with you.
Right.
But we had some successes where you had something hanging over their head, and they worked with you. And then also if you catch them early, and so the crime or they just turned 19 or 20, and some of the stuff might have been when they are a juvenile, you can usually take that and say, okay, listen, and you go to the prosecutor. They're not going to prosecute them, but help us out on some stuff. Refer some stuff to us. You sign them up because they're already inside the forums and places you might not have access to, and they can refer stuff to you. But yeah, so it happens, but it's not that often, unfortunately. I wish it was more often because they're great assets to have because they have the access you want, and so when we started the undercover, you got to build your persona to gain the trust of all these people to get access to closed forums, to places on the dark web, to Telegram channels, whatever it may be. You can't just walk in there and, hey, I'm here, I'm a criminal.
Right.
Tell me what you're doing wrong.
So let's jump forward to your current role at USF. Can you tell us a bit about what that's like in the Department of Criminology?
Yeah, so it's a little unique in that, most cybersecurity, computer science and stuff is in either engineering and computer science department and stuff like that. But because of the digital forensics aspect and then the criminal investigation portion, we got a master's of science in cybercrime, and we're in the process of standing up a bachelor's of science in cybercrime. And so it doesn't have the hardcore programming you would have in computer science. You're not learning how to run a firewall per se, like cybersecurity or an intrusion detection system. But what you're learning is how to gather the evidence, how to review the evidence, and how to conduct the investigation. and that includes the forensic side of it. So not only from network logs and network devices, you're looking at, a criminal cell phone. How do you seize the cell phone? How do you examine and find the data on the cell phone? And so about half the courses in the master's program are forensics courses, and the other half are a mix of general criminology and criminal investigations. And so it's a unique program. It's a little different sometimes, people, but Master's of Science in Cybercrime, what does that mean? They're not used to the term, but
it should be against cybercrime.
Right.
What position we're
so other schools are starting to stand them up. Yeah. And so it's gained traction. We were kind of one of the first, which is great, but some friends of mine in other schools have launched their own. They see the need. And a lot of that, if you're taking computer science or, you get a degree from computer science from USF, you're probably not going to go work as a police officer or the FBI. You maybe the FBI, probably not, right? But if you got an undergrad in criminal justice and you want to learn cyber crime investigation or digital forensics, this gives you that opportunity. Or if you're already a police officer or an agent, you can come back and get your master's degree and learn some more skills at the same time. So that's where we found that's where our students come from. And so it's a good mix.
Tom, are they using like Forensic Toolkit or whatever the cool version of that is? Like, are they using like real stuff?
Yeah. So we use primarily Magnet Axiom forensic software. Cool. It's kind of the new big kid on the block right now. And they just acquired Gray Key, for example, that, which is to use to try to bypass the security on iPhones and Android phones. But they get the whole suite. Yeah. So they have a great academic program. We set up a virtual forensics lab working with USF IT. Each student gets a virtual forensics computer. It's got the full Magnet Axiom suite. It's also got, some other forensic software on there that they'll use. And whether it's cell phones, computers, network devices, network logs, what we use Wirecap and do, get PCAP network captures. We'll bring that into Wireshark. And so they do all that in that closed environment. So they don't have to worry about, trying to get it on their own PC or Windows or whatever. They just remote desktop in. And it's been great. And in Magnet, I got to give a shout out to them. They have a wonderful academic program. They really support academia for, which is great for us because it's inexpensive, but they get the full suite of the tool, which is hard to find nowadays.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is kind of different, although I guess you're teaching some of the same things that you did in your career. But at what point did you realize that education was going to be your passion?
So it was actually pretty early on. I was with the Secret Service, and I went down to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center for a digital forensics course. They decided I was going to be the cyber guy for the Pittsburgh field office, which I was happy about. I'm not complaining. But after I did the training and got established as a forensics and cyber agent for the Secret Service, every year when they put that training on, they asked agents from the field to come back and do the training. And so I volunteered every year, and I really enjoyed that and thought, man, maybe this is something I can do after law enforcement. And so I went and got a master's degree. And then I went to the local community college, and they asked me to help them with a forensics exercise. So I did that. And then they started talking to me about being an adjunct for them. I did that. And I said, okay, I really like this. So I talked to some friends of mine. So what do I got to do to, if I want to do this full time when I retire, what do I need? They said, you got to go get a PhD. If you really want to do this, it'll make you so much more competitive. So went and did that, which was not fun every night.
Wait, you got a PhD while you were a Secret Service agent?
Yeah, well, I was with DCIS then.
DCIS at that point. Wow.
4 years. Every night and weekend I was in class sitting on this computer. It was a grind, and I had a newborn. It was
oh my God.
Beat up, man. But I did it, and now it paid off, and here I am at USF and loving it. Yeah.
Tom, what kept you motivated during that period of time?
Well, I knew it was something I wanted to do, and I really enjoyed, I hadn't really gotten, my master's wasn't a thesis. It was a more professional degree. So I hadn't been involved with much research. And so once I got into that, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I did my PhD in cybersecurity and so I did set up my own botnet, was doing network captures and then doing analyzing and trying to figure out ways to protect networks. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And so that really drove me, and I hammered through that quick, which it was good for me. And some of the professors were amazed. And I was like, hey, I'm getting this done, man. I don't want to be here for 6-7 years.
So you clearly have a very strong background in team building and collaboration. And of course, that's crucial in cybersecurity, as I'm sure it's crucial in the Secret Service and DCIS. So how do you pass that skill on to your students?
I make them do a lot of team building, teamwork exercises. I make them grade each other's papers, and then provide feedback so they can change. That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And then and then also I've found that students nowadays, at least, they're much more I'd say outgoing, focused. We get a lot of them coming straight from bachelor's degrees, which was unheard of when I got my bachelor's degree. Hardly anybody went on for their master's. And so, the team building really, though, it's a little challenging in our program because it's all online. The master's program is, and so we do a lot of teams meetings. I do a lot of exercises where they have to, besides just discussion boards, I make them collaborate. I make them work together, provide feedback to each other. And so it gives them a new perspective when they have to review somebody's draft paper, for example, or presentation or whatever it is. And okay, tell them what they did wrong. Some of them don't want to, and I'm like, you can't say it's not. You cannot give them 100. This is not perfect. You must tell them how to fix their paper, and they get better at it, but they're a little hesitant at first. So that's fun.
Tom, what do you think the future holds for cybercrime? What's the next thing? What should we be worried about?
It's the large criminal organizations. They're basically, almost getting up to nation state ability. These ransomware gangs is one example. But you have large, call it a syndicate, for lack of a better term, of criminals working together, where they have, similar to the military, they have teams of specialists. So they have code writers, they have negotiators, they have people that go out and do the, what do you want to call it, the seeding, putting it on social media, trying to get you infected, doing the spreading. They have the money mules. And sometimes these people, they have no idea who they're working with. It's very compartmentalized, but it's an organization. And it's very hard to counter and investigate because if you got hired, I've interviewed people who got hired to write a piece of code. They had no idea it was a piece of code for a larger malware, right? They were just writing a code and getting paid. And we had the email, and we at first like, oh, you're full, you're going down with them. And then we get the evidence, we're like, they're telling the truth. They had no idea they were working for a criminal organization. And so it's that's the problem is you got these huge organizations now, and they're mimicking nation states with their ability, especially like a third world country with their cyber ability. Yeah. These criminal organizations are way ahead of them. Where they're almost on par with some of the I wouldn't say tier one cyber countries like us or Israel or Iran or something or Russia, but right below it. And how do we counter that with just investigating crime international? We only got let's say you got 40,000 federal agents, and of those 5,000 are focused on cybercrime, and it's all international. So you can't just do it. You got to get an MLAT. You got to work with the Office of International Affairs. You got to get a foreign country involved and be able to work with them, and they got to have an interest in a loss. And so it's very challenging, and that's going to be the problem. It's this international aspect with these large criminal gangs. It's going to be. It's not going to.
What could we do? I mean, is there something the U.S. can do to change? I mean, thinking, could we change the law? Could we change our approach to things? Like, what changes could we make to sort of address this, do you think?
Well, I mean, the law is pretty good. Two things. The problem is you're dealing with treaties with these, when you're dealing with international investigation, whether it's MLAT, which I'm sure you were familiar with as a prosecutor, right?
Yeah.
You got to go through legal, international affairs to put an MLAT into a foreign country to ask their assistance to investigate this crime. Yeah. It take a year to get a response.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, but one things we did, and there's a couple which I wish more would do, right? So we were DOD. We were able to use the NATO treaty as a DOD agency, right? So under the NATO treaty, with the status of forces agreements, if DOD is a victim, we can just immediately start working together. We don't have to do an MLAT. And these prosecutors are like, no, we have to do an MLAT. I'm like, no, look here, Section 5 of the NATO Treaty, the Status of Forces Agreement, we can just do it. And they're like, what are you talking about? And so I get them in touch with, this was like in Germany, European Command Legal, their staff chief advocate, and they, we do it all the time. And they're like, what? And so that was like, wow, this is a game changer. And then you got the Budapest Convention, which was another thing. If they weren't a signatory to the MLAT, you can use the Budapest Convention, which is much quicker. So we really need to figure out a way internationally to be quicker on responses because that's the biggest holdup, in my opinion.
All right. Well, Tom, I want to ask you about. I can see some very cool stuff behind you. It looks like a computer that's integrated into a keyboard from maybe the late '80s, early '90s. You at one point, am I right that you ran a museum of vintage technology? Where did that come from? What was that about?
So as a kid, 1980, I got a VIC-20 as a Christmas present. That's when I got into computers, and so years later, I want to buy a VIC-20. So I went on eBay, bought a VIC-20. And then I started saying there's a whole bunch of these things for sale and they're cheap. And so I started just collecting them so they wouldn't, go to the landfill. And next thing you know, I had a whole storage unit full of vintage computers.
Wow.
And so, which again, they were cheap at the time. So that wasn't that crazy. But I was living in Raleigh and my friend ran B-Sides, which is a conference. If you ever go to DEF CON, B-Sides is like the ultimate conference. There you go.
Oh,
all right.
Cool. Kaylee has a B-Side shirt
on. So B-Sides, I don't know if it's called Raleigh or RTP. I can't remember what they called it, but hey, they heard about all these computers. Hey, can you come and set them up? All right. So that's where it started. We set them all up. People were fascinated with it. And my good friend who used to work with Gary had helped me. And he's like, let's take this on the road. Let's put it out more. And so we started a 501c3, built a website, bought more stuff, and started traveling around mostly the East Coast and going to conferences and setting it up. And then we actually went out to Vegas to DEF CON a few years ago and set it up there. And that's one of the pieces. That's a Commodore PET computer. That's awesome. 8K of memory. The keyboard stopped working, so I was working on it. So if anybody out there wants to set it up, I'm looking for a place to house this thing because the road show is over. That is too much work. I want a place to set it up, get an East Coast version of the Computer History Museum. So
that is wonderful. Yeah. What was it like to see people maybe who hadn't had a chance to work with these computers, if they're younger or this is their first time seeing when they interacted with them?
Yeah. So the young kids would come in and they're sitting down, they're trying to do DOS commands and stuff, and it's like, nope. And then we had some parents come in with the kids. And so the parents are sitting down and showing their kids the device. But the best ever was we were out in Vegas at DEF CON, and there's a guy sitting in an Atari 800, and he's working on it. And he told us, I used to work for Atari. I helped write some of the programming for this. And he's hammering away to kind of hack it and do some weird stuff with the screen, right? And a guy behind him, he's working. I just can't get this to work. And the guy behind me goes, excuse me, sir, I think you want to do this. And he turned around and he goes, well, how would you know? He goes, well, I was an engineer for Atari and I wrote that part of this. And then the third guy's head pops up and he goes, somebody said they worked for Atari. And so now we got three guys who worked on the Atari 800 in the 80s, sitting in an Atari 800 in Vegas, writing code for it. It was fascinating. So that was
awesome.
One of our volunteers, the best quote was, he goes, everybody walks in this room with a giant smile on their face. When they walk in, they see all the old computers. So that made it all work.
Oh, what a great project. So hopefully somebody listening has a air-conditioned, taken care of space that wants to collaborate with Dr. Hyslip.
How fun would that be to have it at a conference or if you have
so awesome.
big cybersecurity office, that could be on the side. You got a conference room, people on break, you go play with the computers, get kids.
Oh, I love it.
Kids could come and take tours. I mean, it would be really cool.
You could see it like one of the bigger, I won't name names, but one of the bigger cybersecurity companies now based in the Tampa Bay area that has beautiful office space could probably carve out something and have it be publicly accessible. I'll just
and then they can use it when they have conferences or meetings on break. Play with it. I'll tell you the coolest thing about ours. This is a dig on the Computer History Museum, which I love, by the way. But they're all behind plexiglass. You can't touch them.
Man.
When we set ours up, you can use every single one of them.
That's awesome.
That's the funnest part. You can sit down and write a program, save it to tape, plus play and record on tape one.
Oh my God.
Save it to tape.
Oh my God.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break now, but when we return, we'll put Tom through our lifestyle polygraph. So please stay with us.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Welcome back. As many of you know, the lifestyle polygraph is a test used by the federal government to determine if a person is worthy of learning our nation's most important secrets. Here, we use this technique for slightly lower stakes to determine whether our guest can join our fantasy cybersecurity squad. Dr. Hyslip, are you ready for the lifestyle polygraph?
Well, I've taken many, so I'm ready to go.
That's what I was thinking.
Not lifestyle, real polygraph.
Hopefully this one will be more fun.
All right.
So, first question. With the entire universe at your disposal, where would you swim, run, and bike if you were building the perfect triathlon?
Ooh. All right. Well, I would stay on Earth. Make it easy. I would say the swim, probably Mirror Lake up in Lake Placid. They actually do a swim there for the Lake Placid Ironman, but it's just a beautiful crystal clear lake. In Lake Placid, it's just such a great, beautiful area. That would be my swim. And then the bike, I would have to go over to Paris to Champs-Élysées, I think is how you pronounce it. It's where they finished the Tour de France. Make that the bike course. And then for the run, I would come back to the U.S. and run in D.C. similar to the Army 10 miler or the Marine Corps Marathon. It's just such a beautiful run through D.C. with all the monuments. So that would be my triathlon.
It's a great triathlon. I'm glad you didn't pick the swimming in the river in Paris, because I think there was a lot of controversy about that. I felt so badly. I felt so badly for those athletes.
I mean, great idea, because you can see it as they're swimming.
Yeah.
But, you should need to check that one first.
No, Mirror Lake a little bit better, I think. Maybe cold, but you could handle it.
It'll be cold.
Do you prefer to swim? Like, is there an advantage to the temperature of the water? Is there when you're swimming, is there faster water or slower water?
So you want it cool, obviously. And then I found too, if it's wetsuit legal, so I can't remember what the temperature is. It was maybe 70, 75. If the water temperature was under that, you're allowed to wear a wetsuit. You're so much faster in a wetsuit because you get a little extra buoyancy. So cold water lets you wear a wetsuit, but it's not so hot, right? You're swimming for a long time. And if it's hot water, you're really heating up and sweating. You don't realize how dehydrated you're getting. And by the time you're done, you're exhausted. That's just a swim. So cold water and wetsuit legal is the key.
I like that.
Gotcha. All right, second question. If you were trying to have the most incredible day of golf ever, which course would you be at, and who from any time in history would round out your ultimate foursome?
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to Augusta, because I don't think I would ever be able to get on there otherwise. And I just love the Masters, so I would love to play Augusta. My first golfer would be Jack Nicklaus. He's my favorite golfer of all time. Idolized him growing up as a kid. So I would definitely pick him. And since we're playing Augusta, he may be able to give me some pointers. Being a 6-time winner. And then I think I would go with probably Ronald Reagan. I don't know if he was a golfer, but is it, again, as a child, he was president. I always looked up to him. And my daughter's named Reagan. Spelled the same way, so I might tell you that I like Ronald Reagan. And then let's see, number 4. I'd probably take somebody present day. I think I'll go with Elon Musk, just because he's doing so much cool stuff, and you never know what he's going to tell you. I think it would just be an interesting 5 hours. So that would be my foursome, I think. Yeah.
I would love to see Ronald Reagan's conversations with Elon Musk.
Oh my God!
Right. He was a great. Ronald Reagan was a great conversationalist, right? He would be. Sure. He would be great.
Oh, it would be fun.
Anytime we mention Ronald Reagan, I may have done this before in the podcast. He has a book of letters that him and his wife sent, that Nancy and him sent to each other. That's really, really good.
Oh, wow.
If you like Ronald Reagan and you've never seen it, I think it's called Dear Nancy or something, but it's really, it's another pretty cool collection to see. They had a pretty great, good anniversary present to give someone if you
definitely
in a position.
All right. So. Good to know. Thank you.
That's a foursome I'd like to see though. I went to Augusta last year and did everything in the town except could not get onto the course.
Oh, no.
Pretty good. Still a pretty good trip. Good trip.
Sure.
Saw the walls,
to go to the Masters. It's like nothing else. The grass almost feels fake. I don't know. It doesn't even feel real. It's crazy.
Tom, how much sleep do you get with all that you do? Do you get a full night's sleep, or do you get like 4 hours?
No. I like to sleep. I'm not giving up. I do a lot, but I work fast. I tell you, that's the funny thing about me. I've always found I won't get distracted. I can focus and get something done, where friends of mine or former coworkers, they seem to start on something and get a little distracted and come back to it. If I start something, I'm getting it done. I found I'm just efficient with my time, but yeah, I definitely like to sleep. I'm getting my 8 hours. I'm getting 8 hours. I don't care.
Maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's the secret. The fact that you get 8 hours of sleep, you can focus.
Yeah, maybe it works for me. It definitely works for me.
All right. Third question. Does a single beer taste better after a great round of golf or the evening after a successful triathlon?
Oh, I'm going triathlon because they're so few and far between, right? You can play golf every day, have a beer every day, right? You're not doing a triathlon every day. And you usually, you're training so hard leading up to the triathlon. You're not drinking much then. And you're so beat down after the fact, and then you get rehydrated, and then you can finally, crack that ice cold beer. Yeah, definitely triathlon.
What's the recovery like, Tom? So if you finish a triathlon, how soon are you like, I'm sick of this? How soon after do you get back on the bike and do you start doing things again?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're talking like an Ironman, it's a little while. If it's more of a, regular, what's in the Olympics now, they call it the Olympic distance, which is, it's like a mile swim, 26-mile bike, 10K run. You're back to training. You take a few days off, get back, but you got to try to peak. So you're not doing sprints. You're not going hard. You get back to recovery. You're still exercising, but recovery. But yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So question 4, we're talking about all this healthy stuff, and I have to ask instead, what's your favorite junk food treat?
Oh, it's funny. I like the bit of honey. I don't know if you remember Bits of Honey. The
really?
Candy bit of honey. Oh,
I do bit of honey from you get it every. No, they're like 1 out of every 20 things you used to have in a sack from your trick or treating.
Yeah, Halloween.
Yeah.
But
like, what is this thing?
Yes,
it was always good.
They taste so good, but you really gotta let them get soft and chew slowly because they will rip your teeth apart.
Absolutely.
I mean, they are sticky.
Yes.
But I really enjoy those. But if you're talking an everyday thing, I like pies. I'm a big. I'm not a huge fan of cake, but I really like like coconut cream pie, banana cream pie, basically any pie. But yeah, pie would be my go-to.
So you're a pie guy and a pie versus cake. Yeah, that's a good. Yes, we've asked that question before. Yep. That's good that you. Oh, that's. Yeah, the pie is American, and the cake is a foreign. In some, I'm not. There's a lot of good American cake bakers, but the pie is like. It's one of those things where pumpkins and apples. American can crank them out.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you more of a fruit pie or a cream pie guy?
Oh, I like them all. I love pumpkin pie. I like cherry pies. I like custard pie, coconut cream pie. They're all good. But I need a real crust. I like the flaky real crust better than the graham cracker crust. That's my. If I had a choice.
That's great.
All right. So 5th question: what is your favorite hair metal band and song?
Oh, I got to go Guns N' Roses. Appetite for Destruction came out when I was in high school, and it was life-changing. Like, what is this? It's fantastic. So, been a huge fan ever since. And of course, I got to go with Guns N' Roses song, and I'm going Paradise City because it starts slow and then gets hard in the middle until the end. So you get a little of both worlds. But yeah, I definitely love hair metal. I'm stuck in the 80s when it comes to music. Although I liked punk for a while too. I'm actually going to see Green Day Monday night, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm not only listening to the hair metal.
Do you ever get the urge to request a metal song at social gatherings, just to spice things up a bit?
Definitely. Oh, yes. I will play metal anywhere. And if they get mad, I'll just switch to a ballad. All right, here we go.
There we go.
Skid Row, I remember you. No one can complain about that, right? Or Every Rose Has a Thorn.
Appetite for Destruction holds up so well. It could come out today and it would still be.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. There's nothing dated about it. It sounds incredible.
No, the whole album too. For every song. It's. It was earth changing back then, but like you said, it could come out today and you'd be like, "Wow, what is this? This is amazing."
The best use of a whistle in any song. When you close the whistle and then it really kicks in. Paradise City.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Here's the whistle. When should we start? Here's when you should start. Blow a whistle. It's just very clear. It couldn't be used again because, the first time out of the gate is the very best time using it, and then it ruined it. We didn't get to do it again. I've been recently on car rides, been playing for my kids. I'll go one band, go for the top 10 songs, and then so they know who that band is to see who they like. And Guns N' Roses is one of the replays that they've requested.
That's great.
They were the ones who shared it. But then it wasn't. And there were some bands I was really disappointed about, right? That like Van Halen, they didn't like the way I like Van Halen, kidding. Right? And which was very disappointing because there's so much and there's so much variation between the kind of songs they have. Yep. But they did not like it. They liked Mean Streets. That was the only one that they liked.
Oh, that's funny.
Streets, which is a great song.
What's funny too is the kids.
They didn't like a lot of the other stuff.
Know they've heard it before, right? All the stadiums, all the whether you go to a high school football game, they're coming into Welcome to the Jungle. They don't even know it's Guns N' Roses, and then like, oh, I like that song, and then you're like, oh, you do? Well, listen to this.
Yeah, it was like, it's a Queen, right, or anything like that. You might hear it at a stadium. You just come on, right? This is what you all been listening to on jock jams, but not in its original context.
Right, for sure. Yeah, we used to go to the Carolina Hurricanes all the time in Raleigh when we lived there, and we had season tickets. And my daughter, she's 2 years old with a Hurricane, so she's listened to Rocky Like a Hurricane since she was born. I don't think she knows who sings it, but she knows the song.
Exactly. Well, that's like kids at the Tampa Bay Lightning games are hearing AC/DC, right? But to hear, this is the guy who sings the Lightning song? Like, yeah, it is. It's the guy.
Oh, okay. It's not bad. Right. Yeah.
You can't hear him in the wild. He's got other hits. He has other successful hits. He's going to have a good career.
Well, now that we all feel just a little bit older, what do you think, Jack? Does Professor Hyslip have what it takes to join our fantasy cybersecurity squad?
Yes, he does. He passes. His answers were great. The only one that we were a little nervous about was the pie over cake, but I think it makes sense because he's a patriot.
All right.
So
right.
we're gonna spin that in the right directions. That's a really good one, Tom. So thank you. And yes, you can have a role both directly helping us on incident response and chasing down the bad guys and hands on keyboard, but also arranging ways to get things from foreign governments faster using alternative MLAT theories. And you're going to be a force multiplier because you can teach other people who are on our team to use some of the tools that we're going to need to do our job. So you're on the team if you'll accept the role.
Yes, I'll be happy to.
All right. So Dr. Hyslip, Tom, Thank you for joining us. If our listeners want to connect with you or learn more about what's going on with you and with USF, what can they do?
So, we obviously have our website, the criminology department. We have a nice cybercrime section there. More than welcome to, find me on LinkedIn. I think it's just T. Hyslip, where we, share a lot of information about the program and what else is going on. I have a Twitter account, or X, but I don't push much there anymore. But the department and the program have good social media accounts. So, check out USF Cybercrime, and would love to have some more students. It's a lot of fun. And also, just FYI, we have 2 law enforcement training programs are completely free. One is digital evidence, it's for like a new patrolman or a new detective, understand digital evidence, understand the places it is. But we also have, that's an 8-hour course. We have a 40-hour course on undercover cybercrime investigations. So we teach you how to work undercover and not burn your cover and set up your accounts and everything. And so it's totally free. And that's on our website as well. So love to have you.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the show. But first, Kaylee, what did you learn today?
Today, I learned that I can get my master's in cybercrime. And as tongue-in-cheek as that sounds, it is really amazing that they created this program and that it's catching on, because it's so needed.
Yeah, and I had known about the undergrad majors at USF, but I had not known about the master's degree program. And I think what surprised me the most that I learned today is that it's split between folks who are coming straight through or nearly straight through on a track where they might have majored in something similar, computer science in an undergrad, and people who are in the workforce in law enforcement who are trying to pivot and focus on cybercrime, which is a great sort of 2 types of students. It's not dissimilar to like a master's in business administration program where you have folks who are interested in an academic sense, but then you also have folks who've been working for companies for a long time and want to get their master's. It's a great model, and it's exactly what we need for the kind of crimes that he's talking about are going to be the crimes of the rest of this century.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, for the entire No Password Required team, I'm Jack Clabby. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. You can find us on social media at No Password Pod. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the No Password Required podcast. And if you know someone who might like it, please share it with them. The show is produced by Cyber Florida, and a special thank you goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website, cyberflorida.org/pod. All opinions expressed by the No Password Required podcast participants are their own and do not exclusively represent the views and opinions of Cyber Florida.